Welcome to another edition of the Youth Entrepreneurship Network Education Series. Today we are focusing on building wealth through real estate and financing options for young professionals. Today we are joined by a very slick panelist of our South African property moguls, investors, financiers, and young professionals who are killing it in the property industry. I'll first start with introducing our speakers, and then we will take it from there. First off, we have Hazel Khumalo, who is the portfolio manager for uMaStandi in KZN and the Free State. Secondly, we are joined by Hazel Masingi, who is the managing director of Hearst Property Group and the recipient of the SAIBPP 100 Young Upcomes winner. And then thirdly, we are joined by Bran Sango, who is the founder and CEO of, I hope I'm pronouncing this right because I've been practicing, Obsidian Investment, which is in South Africa. And then we are joined by Siyabonga, the chairperson of South African Youth in Property Association, SAIPA. And lastly, we are joined by Mr. Nigel, who is the Chief Empowerment Officer of the EDPF Property Academy and Incubator in South Africa. With that said, I'm going to pass the reins to our moderator, Siyabonga, to take over. Siyabonga, the floor is yours.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, your property moguls, leaders of the industry, good afternoon. My name is Siyabonga Mshibe, the Executive Chairman of South African Youth in Property Association, commonly known as SAIPA. Today, I welcome you to the day 2 of the Youth Entrepreneurship Network. This is a space where we collaborate as young property practitioners and try and navigate around the sector, educate, inspire. And yesterday we actually had a electrical fire opening, whereby we're joined by industry experts across our African continent. And it was really an interesting opening where we dwelled into the use of technology in our real estate sector. And I was defeated yesterday. I couldn't use my banner, but I said, not under my watch. Today I'm representing. It shows progress. So thank you very much, colleagues, to our speakers for making time to join us through here today. We know that everyone who's here, you guys are busy making deals, making sure that we have roof over our heads, making sure that real estate is alive. So thank you very much for joining us today. And it's gonna be an educational one. It's gonna be an interesting session. Let's keep it flowing, you know, and let's inspire. So my learned colleague has introduced the panel speakers that we have today. But I would like us to just like to give you guys at least 2 minutes brief for you to do your brief introduction. Starting with Mr. Brian Sango. Today I'm even happy that I can pronounce all your names. You know, yesterday I was having a tough time, you know, with my African brothers, all the way from Nairobi, Botswana. Today I'm very much confident. I'm fluent. So starting from Mr. Brian Sango. And it's just a 2 minutes introduction. Who's Brian Sango? What does Brian Sango do? And I think taking it from there, and then we'll just flow with the program as we go. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much. Afternoon to my fellow panelists and everyone who's joined in on the audience. So my name is Brian Sango, popularly known as your property guy. I've been in the real estate space for just under 15 years now. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Obsidian Investments, formerly My World Space. We've just rebranded as we've expanded across other countries in Africa. So I'm actually currently sitting in a city called Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, which is my home country. So Obsidian Investments has been particularly focused on investor buyers in the African diaspora that are looking at investing in property in South Africa across all asset classes. We major in residential. So we've got clients as far as China, the States, Australia, New Zealand, that we help strategically invest in property in South Africa. And most recently, we've partnered with a Zimbabwean property developer firm called Mukamba. So I'm one of the strategic partners of that. So now we're bridging the gap in terms of real estate opportunities between Zimbabwe and South Africa, taking those and packaging them for the African diaspora, helping them with their due diligence, and as much as helping them make strategic purchases that work towards their growth of property portfolios. In the last 15 years, I've overseen over 750 property sales, mostly sectional title, mostly in the affordable housing space, Johannesburg inner city, Pretoria inner city, which is where we're always helping our clients unlock value in. That's where we are invested as an entity ourselves. So some of the properties that we manage or that we own also fall in the affordable housing sectors. Outside of just property sales and property investing, I've also played a significant role in the launch or growth of a number of prop tech platforms. A number of you may know me from my time with Property Inspect, which is a mobile software and application that helps streamline and automate property inspections. Most recently, I'm one of the partners of a platform called Hoom, HOOM, in South Africa, which is a real estate Tinder. So we designed a Tinder platform, a Tinder-like, a Tinder-like platform for the real estate space that uses AI and algorithms to matchmake sellers and agents of their preferences. You know, a number of times when you're looking for someone to sell your property, you absolutely are overwhelmed with what's out there. You don't know who the right person would be. There's maybe a language barrier. Maybe the person that you've been referred to is way too far away from the property that you're actually selling. Now, through this app, it just does the matchmaking and gives you 3 to 4 preferred agents that you can go with. And the benefit for the agent is they get a sole or joint mandate on your listing as a seller. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Brian Sango, for that brief introduction. I think after we done with the brief introduction, we'll come back to you again so that you can maybe take us through building wealth in real estate and how has it been, the challenges. You know, we always see the positive side when we speak of real estate investments. You know, we would want to know of the challenges that you guys encounter and how can we possibly the new generation that is coming into the space avoid some of those challenges so that at least they are able to build wealth also through real estate. So thank you very much, Brian Sango, for that. I think next on my screen I see Hazel Masingi. Colleagues, please pardon me. So the protocol we will use is the same as Brian Sango will start and then others will follow, including when you answer questions. So I'm just picking up names, dropping them down on my list. So after the introduction, we'll give you guys 5 to 10 minutes to just take us through what you do, building wealth through real estate. So the next, I think, will be Hazel Masingi. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Hazel Masingi. I am the founder and I'm the CEO of Has Property Group, which was founded in 2022. What we do is we do property investment, management, and development with a particular focus on student accommodation. So we're all about, the transformation of spaces, transforming spaces for students into vibrant student homes. And I was also awarded as, the leading youth by South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners last year at the convention. So yeah, I think I'm going to keep my introduction, that short. Thank you, Siyabonga.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Hazel Masingi. And we are very much fond of your achievements. You continue to inspire many other women out there in real estate to thrive and do great. So thank you very much for that slight brief introduction. I think the next speaker would be Zinhle Khumalo from uMaStandi.
Good afternoon. I don't even know whether you guys can see me. I'm not used to using Zoom. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can see you. We can hear you. Happiness.
All right, cool. Good afternoon. My name is Zinhle Khumalo. I am the portfolio manager for uMaStandi, and I head up the KZN and Free State region. I don't even know what else to say, but I work for uMaStandi, and we finance property entrepreneurs that want to build rental accommodation within the townships. I think that's all.
Happiness. Thank you very much for that brief introduction, Zinhle. I think also your work speaks volume in terms of the real estate investment, especially in the township economy. We call it township economy because there's economy in our townships, and you guys are exactly there unlocking opportunities. And I'm sure our participants would definitely be looking forward to hear how can they tap into the space. There's quite a lot of challenges whereby there's lack of information that most of the people that wants to participate in the space get. However, having you here today, we truly appreciate your presence. I think lastly, it's going to be Mr. Nigel from, just a moment. Oh, Mr. Nigel from the Chief Empowerment Officer from EDPF. My good sir, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Siyabonga. I'm also going to try and be brief because a lot of what I do is in the presentation. My name is Nigel. I'm the Chief Empowerment Officer at the Enterprise Development Property Fund. We have several different organizations. The one that I represent today is EDPF Property Academy and Incubator, where we educate, support, and incubate Black entrepreneurs who want to get involved in the property space, whether that be through investment or development. If they want to become facilities managers, property managers, we have education for all of that. Personally, married, 2 adult children. I'm a lot older than I look. I have over 25 years experience now in the property sector, property management, facilities management, finance is my background. So I've been a financial manager. More recently, before I started the organization in 2016 was the last job that I had, was a senior asset manager for a listed property fund that was worth just under 20 billion rand. So my experience is quite vast within the industry. I've also been involved in the same amount of time, 25 years, in enterprise and supply development through the Black Umbrellas, so what used to be called Shaduka Black Umbrellas. I was one of the founding members there, as well as the first chairman. So I was involved with them when they started. Now I have my own incubator, so I'm no longer involved with that generic incubator because my movement went towards property incubation. So the last 8.5 years now, that's what I've been doing. So I'll leave it there. I'll talk about EDPF when I do my presentation. Thanks, Siyabonga.
I think I've mentioned all our speakers. Colleagues, please just confirm if I have never missed anyone. Are we all good? Happiness, can we proceed with the order of the day?
I think we're good, Siya. We can carry on.
Okay, no, thank you very much, my dear colleagues. As the chairman of the South African Youth in Property Association, we pride ourselves with trying to transform the sector. And by so saying, I mean the role in education, educating fellow young entrepreneurs and upcoming property practitioners. And today's topic is building wealth. I already is here that it's said through real estate you never go wrong. You know, that's one of the best investments one can have. Easy to project returns. However, like I've mentioned earlier on, you know, there are times that it can go very wrong. And having you guys here really help a lot so that we can navigate through the challenges, navigate through the hardships and how best we can structure our investment and make sure that we build wealth through real estate, you know. As I'm going to be opening the floor right now, this is your time for you to shine. Share your journey, share your hardships, and take us through how you've built wealth through real estate. And do give us advice on how can a participant who's really interested, intrigued by this sector, build wealth through real estate. I know now we have close to 40 participants, anticipating that will grow throughout the duration of our session. We're having rush hour now, so a lot are joining as they're going on their way home. So using the same order again, Mr. Brian Sango, just a brief 10 minutes. So this is where we all get our 10 minutes to do our presentation, share our real estate journey with the audience, with the participants, and yeah, let's keep it, let's inspire. Mr. Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Siyabonga. Yeah, real estate is an interesting game, and it's continuous learning and unlearning, that's for sure. 15 years into it, and you know the learning never stops. I think what I will start on, so I just want to highlight maybe 3 key topics, right? So I'll look at building real estate wealth as a practitioner, as an investor, and maybe as a service provider, right? So as a practitioner, in fact, let me start with the more exciting one. So as an investor, so what I want to address about real estate investment when I started, and what I would say to a younger me, what I would say to someone starting out for the very first time is having a plan is very crucial. They say if you prep and you have a plan, then the likelihood of whatever it is that you're trying to do working out is higher, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of people come into real estate blindly, especially people from previously disadvantaged communities such as myself, or people that have not been actively playing a role in real estate. We often are misguided by the copy and paste approach. So a number of people got into real estate investment for the wrong reasons. A number of us, when we leave varsity and we've got our first job, and maybe we're being paid well, the first thing we want to do is the show and tell. So we make very hasty decisions in terms of our real estate journey. And I'll go into detail as to exactly what point I'm getting to with this. Is now when you do that, the chances or likelihood of you actually having a concrete plan for growing wealth through real estate are very unlikely. I'll give you a typical example of a friend of mine. Now, she got into real estate a couple of years back before lockdown. She got a job. She was working for one of these asset management companies. And unfortunately, her and I got to chat a few months after she had already made this huge commitment. The first thing she wanted to do, because now she is earning, right, was to buy an investment property that she was going to live in. Bear in mind, she's 25 years old. She's fresh out of varsity. At the time, it worked. She's got the money. She can afford it. The banks are calling her on a day-to-day basis. They want to give her mortgage finance for whatever it is that she's likely to be interested in. And she, on the other hand, because of a number of pressures from family, from friends, wanting to show that she indeed has moved from being a student to being a landlord or being a property owner, was something that she just wanted to do. So she buys a property that's in very, very good shape and at a good price in an area called Parklands in Cape Town. It was under R1 million. And, you know, she loves the property. She's got a car, so she doesn't look at a number of things about the location of this property, etc., etc. It just ties into what she wants. And she couldn't wait to create content and say, guess what? I've bought my first property at 25. Now, 6 months into property ownership of that particular property, she lands a far better job that pays her nearly double what her salary was. Good for her, 25, you know, she's making strides. That makes nearly double what she was earning with her previous company. But this company requires her to move to Johannesburg. Right. So now, all of a sudden, this property that she's just pretty much bought for investment and she's been living in it because of the pressure of, you know, if you're earning right and you've got a good job, then why are you a tenant? She blindly buys a property based on her short-term sort of scenario, and she didn't factor in anything changing in the next 5 to 10 years of her life. Now, boom, she's been asked to relocate to Johannesburg. What does she need to do? She needs to let that property out so that she can as much as have the property pay itself off in terms of a mortgage installment. Now, this property, because of how remote it was, number one, the rentals in the area that she was going to be able to get were far less than what her mortgage repayment was. So the property had worked well for her as a primary resident. For her living in the property, it was great. For her renting it out, however, it was a different scenario. Now she's moved to Joburg. She has a property in Cape Town. She's put a tenant in there. The rental income is not nearly as much as what she needs in order to pay her monthly installment. This property in Cape Town that she bought as an investment is now costing her money out of her own pocket, and she's got additional rental in the property that she now resides in Johannesburg. What's the point that I'm making with this story that I've just walked you through? We as young people tend to rush to look like we're doing great, and we don't really make sound decisions. Now, what I did that's opposite to this good friend of mine was I for a very long time and I've been living in Cape Town for 15 years. Yes, I'm currently in Zimbabwe or other offices, but I've been a resident in Cape Town for 15 years. And for that entire duration of my stay in Cape Town, I've been a tenant since day one. Any properties that I've bought have been in your Johannesburg inner city areas where the price point is far less, where I'm making some form of a monthly profit or cash flow on a month-to-month basis, and still having the privilege of moving from one area to the other at will. You know, so what we should actually strive to do is strategically buy properties that work well from a rental perspective. So even when you buy those properties, think of how they would appeal to the rental market and analyze what those returns would look like. If worst case scenario, let your rental income be sufficient enough to pay your month-to-month cost of that property, mortgage, levies, rates, you name it. Better case scenario is, imagine you use the bank's money, which is a mortgage, and you still have some form of cash flow coming in from your properties that you own for investment. It means if you're to repeat that exercise and have cash flow coming from 5 or 6 properties, then put all that amount together, it could certainly fund your rental in whatever area you're living. So now you're young, you're still in your 20s, no kids. There's the high likelihood that you'll be moving from one job to the next best job, which could be in any area. You're not married as yet. And now you have your portfolio or your investments paying for your rental, but allowing you the flexibility to move from one point to the other. And that way, once we do away with these societal norms, only then do we start making concrete investment strides towards growing wealth. So that, I mean, I'll use that case study just to put that topic to rest on an investor. The other part that I would like to just touch on is as a practitioner. Now, I got into real estate at the age of 21, which was in 2011. I was rather fortunate that a German couple that worked for Remax took me from selling eggs and breakfast at a restaurant and turned me into a real estate agent. And here I am sitting today amongst a panel of industry experts, thanks to their goodwill. And now, with a lot of young people trying to break into the industry, the one barrier to entry, and I know, Siyabonga, you might have a lot of comments around this because this speaks a lot into industry transformation. The hindrance of being able to actively partake in our industry is it's a commission-based sort of environment. We come in, we've got black tax, we've got parents that we need to support, we've got overheads, we've got food that we need to put on the table. So that has been a barrier to entry to a number of people. But now, given how prop tech and AI and all these things have further enhanced the industry, there's a lot of other entry points that help young entrants that are trying to break into the industry as a practitioner so as to earn some form of living. Without particularly just coming in as a sales agent or as a rental agent, perhaps coming in as an assistant or playing in other roles within the real estate value chain and being able to derive a salary from that makes it much, much easier to have someone straight out of varsity coming in and playing an active role within our industry. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. I know I can go on and on and on.
Yeah, I think I was about to cut you. That's why
Okay. No, I'll leave the rest for my fellow speakers.
Yeah, I know. Thank you very much, Brian. I think you've touched a very wide scope of real estate, from transiting into investments and into property, practitioner point of view. I hope my fellow attendees are having questions in line, and keep those questions coming. Just pen them down. As soon as we allowed everyone to speak, we'll then obviously open floor for questioning, and so that you guys can engage with our fellow speakers. But thank you very much, Brian, Sango, for that experience which you've just shared. And we're looking forward to engaging more with you. I think from my side, I have a few questions in terms of how do you transit from just being a practitioner and managing the investment with the tools, knowledge you have. I mean, being a property practitioner, you're exposed to quite a lot, you know, on its own. But let me pose my question when we open for the floor for that. Next speaker would be Hazel Masingi. The floor is yours, ma'am. 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, lol. Thank you, Siyabonga. Okay, so before I get into it, I just want you to speak about how I was introduced to property. And actually, you know, I feel like when a lot of people go into business or when they start businesses, it's always, you know, they're always motivated by money, if we're really being honest. So I'm just going to touch a bit on that. And then after that, I'm going to get straight to, I'm going to speak about our first project, you know, which is one that came with a lot of challenges. You know, that's where I learned a lot, because when I got into this space, I had no experience. I had no, you know, prior education in property development, you know. So yeah, made a lot of mistakes. So I was raised in an area that has 2 university campuses. So I grew up in an environment where, you know, our fellow neighbors were renting out rooms to students. That's how huge the demand was. So a neighbor of ours once converted, you know, a normal RDP house into a student accommodation. And since I knew how much, you know, each and every single student was paying, so I would literally calculate, you know, how much the owner was taking home. And, you know, I think those figures, they sparked something in me, and I was like, okay, this is good money. And then when I went to varsity on my first year, I stayed in an accommodation that had, we were over 400. And I would also calculate, but now the difference was that accommodation was accredited, right? So we were paying like 3.5. Was it 3.5? Okay, over 3.5 per month. And that accommodation in Soshanguve, the non-accredited one, is like 800, 900. So you can imagine the difference, how much the owners are now making compared to how much that owner in Soshanguve was making. So those figures actually sparked my interest. And when I was in my first year, that's when I asked a lot of questions about student accommodation. And I had someone who used to tell me, this is how it works. You know, this is how much NSFAS pays, this is how accreditation works. So when we started working on our first project, I already knew, okay, this is my target market. Whatever that I will be doing it for NSFAS beneficiaries, you know, and then already the demand has been identified. There's a huge demand of student accommodation, especially in that area, you know, and then I had done a little research about TUT. So I knew that, you know, the institution could only accommodate this percentage number of students, and the remaining students had to go to private student accommodations. And that's where, you know, I wanted to come in. So that was my entry into student accommodation. It was motivated by money. And then we started working on our first project, which was in 2022. Yes, that's when the company was founded. You know, we got a property in Soshanguve, and then we converted it into a student accommodation. It has 20 single bedrooms. It has a kitchen. It has 6 toilets. It has 2 shower rooms. Each shower room consists of 4 shower cubicles. So yeah, that's the project that actually showed us flames. To a point where I'd ask myself, well, what am I doing here? I'm not sure I want to do this, because at some point we're losing money. You know, we're losing money. Kamo, you know, time is taking, you know, and, you know, developing a property for long, it costs you money, because there's still operating expenses. You're not making any money, but you need to pay, you know, your levies, you need to pay all those kind of things. So it was quite a challenge. It still is quite a challenge. So this first project was actually funded by my mom. Like I said, it was originally an RDP house, which we redeveloped. And we initially allocated, I'm gonna mention, you know, the amount, so that you'll get it later why I mentioned all this, you know, the monies. So we initially allocated 2 million, but you know, due to adjustments along the way, you know, the total cost went to about 2.5 million. You know, and if I was to do that project now again, you know, I don't think I'd spend even 2 million, you know, on a project. So yeah, that was, like I said, that was part of the journey, you know. So the project, like I said, is also located in Soshanguve. It's located in Soshanguve. It was in a residential area, and we started building before rezoning, because if you are going to build a student accommodation in a residential area, you need to, you know, compliance and those kind of things. I knew nothing about that. We started building before I knew any of that. So, you know, at some point we had to pause the project, because now we don't have the plans approved, although the plans were already submitted, but they're not approved. Before they could even be approved, you know, the municipality is going to request for the rezoning, which is something we didn't have. So by the time that I started engaging with the town planner, the project was like 80% done. It was literally on the last stages. So yeah, but yeah, no, it's fine, I land. And let me just quickly check something here. So I think out of all the mistakes, a lot of costly mistakes that we made, 2 things that I managed to get right. One was the location. Like I said, it's a perfect location. Students can work to and from the campus, I mean. So meaning that, you know, you're not obliged to offer transportation. And secondly, also, again, it was designed to meet the essential standards of student accommodation, which actually helped. So as much as we didn't have, you know, compliance and all those other documents in place, you know, we did get those 2 things right. But the biggest challenge was honestly appointing the right people to actually do the job. You know, from the architect to the engineer, you know, to the contractor, the people that we appointed, no, they didn't do a good job. I don't want to lie. Maybe the engineer at some point ran away with money. So we had to appoint another engineer, meaning that now we're paying, you know, somebody else to come and do the job that we've already paid for. So that was also a part of the challenges. And also, again, I did speak about the zoning, which also takes time. You know, rezoning takes time, and it's also costly. So, you know, now if I am to do another project, you know, I'd make sure that I get those things in place. You know, I can never build without approved plans, without, having the occupancy certificate, no compliance, nothing, but that was part of the journey. If I were to get into, other projects, I would definitely do things differently and I will save money. But like I said, it was part of the journey. And I don't regret anything because I learned a lot. I learned so much. So I'm not sure if my 10 minutes is quickly done. I just want to quickly speak about, am I done? Is it over? Okay, I'm not going to take time. Thank you. So one, I spoke about my lack of experience and lack of prioritization, right, in property development, which cost us a lot of money. It also cost, delays. Which is fine because at the time I thought I knew what I was doing. I was literally moving around like a big boss. I thought I knew what I was doing. And two, another challenge was, financial management. There was poor oversight. All we did was just to pay. Whenever we received a code for something that we needed, would make payments. We would never verify costs, would never compare codes, so yeah. Budget overrun was definitely a given on that one. Three, we allowed the builder to have control over material, which is something I would never do again. If I need something from you, I'll buy the material myself and then I pay you for labor. Giving someone a contract for both, that one, it's a disaster. I don't want to lie, it's a disaster because now you have control over the project. If you are not on site and you tell me that, look, Hazel, I can't be on site because there's no material, and now my supplier says, material is going to be available, next month, there's nothing I can do, because you have control. I gave you the money to buy the material. I gave you money for labor. So when you buy the material yourself, the contractor has no reason not to be on site. You need to come work. And I think fourth one, absence of a project manager. I was a project manager. I only realized that we actually needed one when we're almost done with the project. Or actually, we're supposed to engage with get a project manager, point one, so that they can assist with overseeing the timelines, with coordinating work, and also closing communication gaps between us and also the contractor. So yeah, it cost the project, the things that I've mentioned, the challenges, they cause delays, they affected both time and they affected, both budget, but yeah, I'm happy I went through all of that, because now I know better and, I'm doing better. So yeah, I think for now, I'll stop right here. Thank you, Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Hazel, for the information you shared. I think it's quite interesting, I have so many questions in my head, from the contractor base to the municipality base to town planning. I know a lot of related activities are affected by town planning, and we want to learn from your mistakes. You've been there, done it, and you're still here in real estate, so it tells us a lot, So we'll definitely engage with you. Hope my participants, my attendants here, they are penning down their questions so that we keep this interactive, So thank you very much, Hazel, for the information you shared. And then the next speaker is Zinhle from uMaStandi. Before you join in, Zinhle, I just want to highlight a bit on the township economy, I think like I said earlier on, we call it township economy because there's definitely economy in our townships. And I think uMaStandi has taken that market and with a storm, because through that market that was left out of the sector, we are able to unlock backyard investments. And this is proper investments, by the way, lucrative. And I hope that Zinhle, when she goes through her presentation, she will take us through how can we access these opportunities and some of the key projects that they've done. And my fellow attendees can take questions, and then we'll go on to another round whereby we just interact with our guests. So thank you very much, Zinhle. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna have to share my screen because if I don't, I will talk a lot, and sometimes it's very good if everyone can see the presentation. Can you guys see my screen?
Happiness.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, cool. So like I said earlier, I am the portfolio manager for uMaStandi, which is part of the TOUGH group. So this presentation just aims to give you guys more information about how we work and the requirements and the types of projects and types of financing, etc. So like Siyabonga said, we finance within the townships. So mostly major cities, wherever TOUGH has offices, that's where we operate. This is just a picture of one of our projects. This was built at Davidson, there in Gauteng. So just to give you guys an overview, so a background. So like I said, we're part of the TOUGH group, which was started in 2003 and has a proven track record. And I mean, just seeing the demand that was there within the inner city, there was also just studies done to see how much of demand is there for rental accommodation within the townships as well, because that market does exist. So TOUGH's focus is on financing inner city properties, and the emphasis is mainly on regeneration, urban land reform. And uMaStandi's focus is financing property entrepreneurs within the townships, and we'll be focusing on densification and curbing urban sprawl, as well as supporting township economic development. So just to give you guys an overview of TOUGH's track record, because it's the parent company. To date, we have financed around 65,000 units. That's 1,500 buildings within the country. We've been in operation for 22 years, and we have 7 offices in SA. So that is your in Braamfontein and Joburg, and there's Durban, there's East London, there's PE and Cape Town, as well as Bloemfontein. And our current loan book sits at 4.3 billion, and we financed around 14.7 billion to property entrepreneurs, with 74% of those loans being to previously disadvantaged individuals. That's your Black, Colors, and Indians. Then uMaStandi's track record, we are still a baby of the company, and even when you compare the loan amounts that are received at TOUGH versus the ones that we provide, it's quite different, because at TOUGH you can get a building for 50 million, whereas in the township you can build for 1 million, 2 million rands, and sometimes 600,000 rands, where maybe you're trying to complete your building. So currently we have 68 loans in servicing. I think this has increased, and our current loan book stands at 95 million rands. We've built 8,322 units. We also do provide financial literacy. These figures have changed. It's over 1.5 now. And we also are geared towards providing or making sure that there is creation of permanent and short-term jobs within our projects. We service over 80 townships, and 50% of our loans have been provided to females, with 100% of our loan book being to previously disadvantaged individuals. So this is just how the units look inside. And then just to give an overview of the associated companies. So it's uMaStandi, which focuses in the township. We have TOUGH that does the inner city areas and some suburban areas. And we also have Industrial Equity Fund, which is mostly geared towards assisting your previously disadvantaged individuals when it comes to them being a bit short on equity. So it's a 7-year loan that helps these individuals to be able to access our finance. So just to look at our impact logic, I know I have 10 minutes, but it's so impossible to do it in 10. I'll try to move as quickly as I can, but
okay, sorry, Zinhle, I think you can proceed, because you never utilize your 5 minutes introduction. So you can add.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So as I was saying, whenever we finance within these townships, we do want to create an impact through having inclusive growth and transformation within our townships, providing training and mentorship. We do a lot of hand holding. So if we do finance you, it's not you just doing everything on your own. We are always there to support you from your application stage through to your construction. Even when you're servicing, whatever challenges that you face, we are there to just advise, because it is a niche market, and we know how these things normally go. There's local economic developments that we are trying to stimulate, and like I said, job creation and skills development. And then also when it comes to urban densification in our townships, we are trying to achieve that as well, and to create a fiscal impact for local governments, because we do try to create relationships with the municipality, through having these buildings compliance, where you have your occupancy certificate, your approved plans, and also just pushing our clients to be able to, pay for their rates and utilities. So all of these things, we are always working towards them whenever we are providing finance within these areas of finance. And then just to look at our product information, this is the same for TAF and uMaStandi. So just to highlight the fact that as much as there's a TAF, which does inner city and suburban areas, and then there's uMaStandi, which does the townships, our product offering is the same. It's just that the areas are different. So we provide a mortgage loan in townships, the loan term, so you pay our loan over 15 years, and our pricing is JIBA plus a margin, or we can just say prime plus. We finance up to 80% of the total project cost, and we normally need 20% and above. It depends on your project, in terms of its costing, in terms of the rental. So normally we would need around 20% upwards from the client as an equity contribution into the deal, because when it comes to commercial type of financing, it's never 100% financing. So we do need the client to show some skin and to have some skin in the game. We do provide grace period during construction. So this is where the clients are still building these rental units. They do not pay us. They only stop paying us once the tenants have moved in. We also have a project review consultant. So this person is the one that helps guide the projects in terms of seeing that are you spending the money correctly? Are you not deviating from the plans, etc., so that we can have a good looking building. And we also provide non-financial support, such as training. We have a tough program for property entrepreneurship, which is done with UCT. That is normally free to our clients, but if you're interested in it and you're not a client, you do have to pay a certain fee. But if you're interested, you can always email myself, and I will just route you through to the person who will be able to give you information on the course. We provide mentorship, which is one-on-one, so that, whatever challenges that you face, you can be guided there. There's construction guidance, and very important is your property management guidance as well. So the TAF program for property entrepreneurship course covers things such as your property development, property management, land use management, utilities management, which is very important to us, property law, student accommodation, because we do finance student accommodation, both within the townships and in the inner city as well, building contracts, as well as new building and development approvals. I might already covered the one-on-one mentorship. This is another one of the units. And this is how it looks outside. So the areas of finance, like I stated, that we are present within Gauteng, so from Joburg Southwest, Northeast, Pretoria, and Ekurhuleni. We also have some areas in Cape Town. There's KwaZulu-Natal, there's the Free State, and as well as the Eastern Cape, which covers your Port Elizabeth and East London. So if someone is interested in building rental units within these areas, they can always reach out to myself, and then I will route them through to the portfolio manager that services that region. So I don't service Gauteng, but I do have my colleagues that take care of that area in Cape Town and Eastern Cape. I just service KwaZulu-Natal and Free State, but getting you through in contact with them is never an issue. It's always very easy. So the key areas of consideration when we are looking at your projects, these are the things that we look at. So things such as your character and competence, because we want to know who we're getting into a relationship with, you know, because it's 15 years. This is very different from how banks do things where, you know, they're just going to put information on the system and give you money and then you got to take care of things. But with us, it's very interactive from application through to construction, even after you have started paying us, because there are things that we would need to check to see that the building is retaining its value. We look at your product design as well as the structure. So this is where we are looking at things such as the typology of units that you're trying to build, because an example would be the fact that we are moving away from rooms where people share, you know, your ablution facilities, to now having your 1-bedroom units that have kitchenettes that look similar to the ones that I have showed the pictures of, having your own bathroom. We look at your parking. So when we look at that, sometimes we can then advise that maybe in the area that you're trying to build in, there isn't a lot of people that are renting out 2-bedroom units. So maybe let's have a few 2-bedroom units and maybe more 1-bedroom units, because that appeals to your younger professionals, because maybe they want to live there because they want to be closer to work. And it's like we have seen also as well that with young professionals, it's not always people that want to live in town. Some people are also very comfortable living within the township and being able to, you know, go to work. We look at your rights to build and trade, which is your zoning, to see whether what you're designing is designed in accordance to what your zoning would say within your property. We look at the detailed feasibility and financial analysis, which is quite important because it gives us and yourself as the client an idea of how your building will be operating. So we look at how much it'll be to build, how many units you'll be building, the cash flows, you know, your operational costs as well. And it just gives you an overview of what you're getting into so that you know that this will work. And we only do deals when they will work, when you have the equity into the deal. We look at your property management solution. If you don't have experience in running a rental building, we always say you must just outsource for the first 3 years, and you'll learn, I mean, within these 3 years, and after that you can run it yourself. And then if it has positive cash flows and you have everything else, it results in a loan approval. So if we look at the products and services that we offer, both as SAF and uMaStandi, we have the purchase only, which is where one is purchasing a rental building that does not need any construction. So this one here, sometimes it has tenants, or sometimes you would say, I don't want to get rid of these tenants and get new ones. It's really up to you. Then we have your purchase plus construction. So this is where a person wants to purchase the land and build units in. We have construction only, which is where a person already owns the land that has a title deed and needs finance to build rental units. And then we have your conversion only, which is where we are converting office space or light industrial buildings into accommodation. And then we have an equity release. So an equity release is where one already owns the property that has its compliances, which I will talk about in the next slides, and wants to then refinance that building in order for them to purchase another building, or, you know, to help grow their property portfolio. Our target market is split into two. So we have your small scale macro developers. These are mainly the people that don't really live in the township, but sometimes they do. And, you know, this person already owns an investment property or wishes to purchase one and has other sources of income as well. So this person here is seeking to grow their property portfolio with us. And we also have your home-based micro developers, which would be a person that wants to build units, you know, your backyard units, because I know Siyabonga had spoken about backyarding. We aren't really doing a lot of backyarding. People are buying, you know, like your 4-room houses and demolishing to build more units, because then maybe they can build up to 18 units instead of having 6 at the back, or, you know, depending on how big your spaces are. And then I just want to show you guys a video of one of our units. So this is just one of our projects here in Durban. It's in its completion stages, just to show you the type of quality that we go for within our units. So this is it's a self-contained bachelor unit. It was built here in Durban. The rental income generated per bachelor unit is around 3.8. So there is a lot of, you know, bachelor units that we are seeing that are built, you know, up to this quality within all of our areas of finance. Then this is just to show you guys how some of these units look, because designs do vary from developer to developer. This is how it looks inside. And then this is just to show in terms of the backyard units, how it normally looks. So the owner lives here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. And then the rental units are built around the house. So this is just to help maximize or densify the stand and, well, you know, generating an income. This is another one of our units that are still in construction. We're almost done. This one is 18 bachelor units. It's in Protea Glen. This one is, I think it was built in 2022 and it's been operational. So because of the aesthetics of the building, which this is normally something that I always tell my clients, that if you get your building to look very neat and very aesthetically pleasing, you never have an issue where you're going to say that a unit has been empty for more than 2 months. So in this building, one of the things that we saw was that there was even a waiting list of people wanting to live there because it was safe. It had, you know, your electric fencing, it had an automated gate, even internally, you have your built-in cabinets, your very spacious wardrobes as well. So building something that looks this good always, you know, helps you with retaining your tenants and not having very high vacancy rates. So this is just what I wanted to highlight when it comes to the equity release that I had spoken about earlier. So if you want to refinance your property so that you can buy another one, these are the compliances that you would need to have. So things such as your fire safety certificates, your electrical compliance certificates, certificates of occupation, approved building plans, as well as sometimes we do ask for this, a structural engineer's report for us to see whether the building is structurally sound. And then I just wanted to touch on students' accommodation, of which a lot of people are interested in. I'm just not sure whether there is someone that covers students' accommodation here, but normally we do state that for a person to want to venture into students' accommodation, because we do take it on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if I can play this video while I speak. Okay, it's a bit, yeah. So just for you guys to see how some of our students' accommodation within the township looks like. So this is normally for, you know, these buildings that are within proximity to your TVET colleges, and also universities that are within townships. So there is an opportunity there for, you know, some people to venture out into it. We don't normally allow first-time students accommodation providers to finance these buildings, because there's a lot of challenges, you know, when it comes to NSFAS, you know, when it comes to late payments. Sometimes you need to have enough money to be able to keep the building going yourself. So I always advise people to have maybe at least 2 buildings that are renting out to working individuals, and then the third one can probably be students' accommodation, so that if you're having difficulties with UNSFAS, then these 2 buildings can help you be able to run your building in the meantime. And I always state that, you know, if a person is trying to get into students' accommodation, as lucrative as it might look, because when you're looking at the per bed rate, you're not looking at things such as, you know, how costly maintenance is, and the fact that you need to cover all of the utilities and the, you know, all of those things, that you do need to do very extensive research before getting into it, because it's lucrative, but it also has its own challenges as well. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Zinhle, Khumalo, for that presentation. I'm seeing messages on the chat box going in, questions going in. So we'll definitely get to learn from you and unpack certain things. You know, for my fellow brothers across the continent, I know we are joined in by our fellow brothers, property practitioners across the continent. The name uMaStandi stands for the landlord. So when in our language, when we say uMaStandi, we mean the landlord. So we are here today with the landlords here. And last but not least, I think I'll call in Mr. Nigel to also have him share his master's presentation. I think as I was sensing the speakers dwelling much into how to create wealth in real estate, I remember one of my brother, Daniel Kazadi, he always says that the more you learn, the more you earn. And as Hazel was mentioning about the location, it just clicked that he used to also encourage that location, because location is key in real estate. So my beloved brother, Nigel, you can take through. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Just checking to make sure that you can hear me, because I've changed my mic setup while the others were talking.
No,
can you confirm
happiness.
that I'm good? Okay, fantastic. All right, I've got a presentation that I'm going to try and make as short as possible, so I'll skip over a whole lot of stuff. Let me just get it up quickly and share. All right. Okay, Sia, can you just confirm again that you can see my screen?
Happiness, my good sir, you can proceed.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so let me just click on here, and then I can use my mouse to move. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today, and I've been asked to talk about, is financing your property venture. Now, I respect the fact that there are people from outside of South Africa in this session. So what I need you to understand is that what we as EDPF do is mostly focused on the property sector within South Africa, within the South African context, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think the takeaway from my topic today is you can basically use any of the funding models that I'm going to talk about. It doesn't matter where you live. You can use the same models anywhere in the world. So as much as it's going to be a South African context, our members from across the world and the continent, hopefully you'll be able to implement some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today. So I want to talk today about unlocking the property sector for Black entrepreneurs, especially, and empowering and transforming the property sector through alternative funding methodologies. So that's the main topic today. Our organization, EDPF, we are an impact fund with a mission to empower historically disadvantaged individuals, mostly entrepreneurs, who are wishing to get involved in the 7 trillion rand property industry in South Africa. So that's our main focus. Our vision is to change the landscape of property ownership patterns in South Africa. As you all know, we have a legacy of apartheid, and I'll speak a little bit about that just very briefly, which makes it very difficult for Black entrepreneurs to get involved in the property sector. So let's talk about access to capital. Access to capital remains one of the
biggest barriers to entry. The purpose of EDPF is to break all the barriers of entry into property, especially in the South African context. But when you talk about the different barriers, property funding is almost always the most difficult one to break. So the discussion just prior to me, where uMaStandi and TAF are one of those organizations that actually support Black entrepreneurs, is phenomenal, because there is still very much systemic racism within the banking sector, in my opinion anyway. It's just my opinion, and some people will argue with me, but I think I'm right. Then we want to talk about the legacy of apartheid and the limitations of broad-based Black economic empowerment in South Africa. We have this BEE Act that is supposed to enhance and help transform the property sector, but it hasn't really been effective. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But let's talk about EDPF very briefly. EDPF is an organization that wants to break the barriers of entry. That is our main focus, so that we can transform the property sector. In my opinion, there are 4 barriers. The first one is understanding the industry. The second one is access to market. The third one is support services. And the fourth one is funding. We have all but broken most of the barriers. So the first 3 are completely broken. The first one by education, the second one through networking, the third one through the support services that we bring through the EDPF program. We have 57 companies across the country where we give either free or discounted support to those entrepreneurs. And in most cases, the work only gets paid after the funding has been approved. So if there is a cost to any work that we do, or any of our service providers do, then that's normally funded within the project cost once it's approved for funding. So in most cases, other than the minimal fee that they pay to the organization a month, they basically get almost everything for free. So we've basically broken all of those barriers. We've broken it through our academy, through our crowdfunding platforms, through our support services, through the companies that work with us, etc. We have a full e-learning platform, which basically covers all of these aspects. We're talking about back office support, crowdfunding, access to the market, access to finance, industry specialists, trainers, mentors, e-learning platform. Those are all the things that the EDPF covers. And we talk through things like legal, accounting, auditing, tax, Lightstone and TPN access, primary professional services like architects, quantity surveyors, town planners, etc. And then secondary professional services like accountants, lawyers, tax consultants, and so on. We have 27 educators that work voluntarily in the program. They don't get paid. They do it because they want to transform the sector. And they also, if they're in a big corporate, they get enterprise development points. Here's just a few of them. We have educators in the facilities management, energy management, water management, property management, literally everything that you require, we can train you on, and we do train our candidates on. Okay, so that's enough about EDPF. I think that took up my 5 minutes that I skipped in the beginning. So let me talk about the financing side of things. I've been asked today to explore different funding models, and especially the ones that are considered to be alternative funding models. So the legacy of apartheid is one of exclusion. We as Black people, and when I speak about Black people, we talk about the generic Black as per the BEE codes. Anybody who's not white, anybody who's not privileged under the apartheid era system. We have historically been excluded from being able to be part of the property investment and development space. And even today, there are still arguments about land ownership and who owns the land, etc. We're talking about expropriation and all of those kinds of things. And even today, still the majority of land, other than land owned by government, because government does own a big chunk of land within the country, other than government land, privately held land is mostly in the hands, still very much in the hands of white farmers and white people and big corporates. So the apartheid of a legacy has left us with something that is very, very hard to break. Then when we talk about BEE, it was a good start, but nowhere close to what we need to break the barriers of entry into property for Black entrepreneurs. We have, the codes are there, but unfortunately, there's just too much of a need and a demand, and too little support and money from the institutions and organizations that actually can support. So unfortunately, there just isn't enough support. So at the EDPF, our motto is that we, the whole thing about if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. We are very much focused on teaching and supporting so that the entrepreneurs that come through our program will be able to do it for themselves. We don't want to hold your hand for the rest of your life. We only want to be supporting you for a period of time, then release you to be able to do your own thing. So the fact that we've got this apartheid legacy and that BEE isn't really working, we have to rely on ourselves to be able to build legacies for our families. So what does the funding gap entail? Banks require security and experience. So you will, if you are not already struggling with it, you will eventually start to struggle with it. It is very difficult to raise money from a bank because they have all sorts of criteria that you are not able to, as a first-time investor or first-time developer, you cannot reach those levels. As I said earlier, our banking system is still very much based on the apartheid system, and there's still systemic racism within the funding and banking and even the insurance space. Government funding is slow. With government, if you go to the NEF or you go to the Small Business Development or SAIPA, any of these institutions that are government related, they can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes 18 months to approve your deal. But by that time, the deal is gone. Then you don't have the access anymore. And then private equity favors established developers. Private equity doesn't want to do deals with guys who are or people that are new in the game because you have no experience, you've got no collateral, you've got no balance sheet for them to take surety against whatever it is that they're going to invest in your company with. So those are traditionally the three main sort of sources of money that people go to: banks, government institutions, and under government, we also talk about development finance institutions, or what they call DFIs, and then equity funders. Those are the three main sources of funding. And as you can see, very difficult to raise money from any one of them. So how do you raise money? There are a couple of ways that are sort of quite obvious and out there. And we're going to go through some of them now. So the first one is a home loan. You go to a bank, you say, I earn X and I have a deposit. I'd like to take a bond, and they'll maybe give you 80, 90, sometimes even 100% to buy your first home. Sometimes banks will even give you 110% because they recognize the fact that there's payments due for transfer costs and transfer fees and all of these things. So they would then give you sometimes 105, 110% even. But that will only normally be for your first home. When it comes to wanting to invest into property so that you can rent it out, and you're using your own payslip and your own income stream as the repayment ability, then they would require you to put in a deposit, most times about 10 or 20%. Second one is bank security, where you don't actually have the security. You then ask somebody else to stand surety for you, and based on that person's balance sheet or income stream and so on, they would then utilize somebody else's security so that they can lend you money. That's a bit more difficult to do, but the banks do allow it. Then there's personal credit. If you can structure a deal where you can use your a credit card, or you can use a bank loan. I know, for example, Capitec, they will offer up to 250,000 Rand loan where it's unsecured, so you don't have to do a bond over the property. So if you can do a deal where you can get a property for 250,000 or a bit more, and you've got cash for the rest, then a normal credit facility could potentially work for you. Then there's equity gearing. Earlier on, I think it was Zinhle that spoke about using the equity in your property. And basically what that means is if you've got a property where there's no debt on it or there's very little debt, you can then go to the bank and say, using this property, I want to release some equity out of that property. So you lend me money against this property so that I can then go and buy a second property. So that's something that you can do as well, is to release equity from an existing property. Then there's asset finance. You could maybe refinance, maybe if you've got 2 cars that are paid up and they still have value, you could maybe finance the cars, refinance the cars, then use that cash to then go and buy a property, or at least put a deposit down on a property. So using other assets, refinancing those other assets, and then using the cash to go and buy property. Number 6, partnerships. You can go and talk to other people, friends, family, colleagues, and say to them, listen, I'm trying to do a property deal, but I don't have the money. Can we do a partnership where you put in cash, somebody else puts in cash, a third person puts in cash, and then together we have enough money then to go and buy the property. Now you can do that in another way where you put, as partners, you put in just enough money for the deposit, and then collectively you can go to the bank for a bond. So there is that kind of combination that you can do as well, where you only collect enough money from your partners for the deposit. But the best option is to obviously collect all the money from your partners, so you don't have to take out any debt, because debt causes problems between partners. I've got so many examples in our organization where we've had students that have come in, they've got 2 or 3 partners, and then only the one partner carries all the burden of the bond, and the other partners pay nothing towards the bond. Then that causes friction between the partners. So it's always better if you have a partnership that you buy the property cash, in my opinion. Next one, seller finance. Now, seller finance is a complicated one because normally when sellers want to sell, then they want their money. But you can negotiate with a seller that possibly has his property. Just today, we were dealing with a seller that's had his property on the market for almost a year now. So he realizes that he's not going to be able to sell his property. And basically what we are now negotiating is to say, as a seller, you actually finance the property. So basically what happens then is the seller says, right, I sell the property to you for R1 million. You pay me back over 5 years. The buyer then says, right, okay, so over 5 years, that's 60, let's say it's a 1.2 million rand property, and over 6 years, let's do a 6-year deal, and over 6 years, you can then pay back 200,000 rand per year with interest. So every year you pay 200,000 rand plus interest of whatever is left. So then you can pay, say, 20,000 a month or something, and then be able to pay off 240,000, then includes interest over a period of 5 or 6 years. And then the seller has actually financed your deal for you, and you don't have to go to a bank. So that's what seller finance is all about. Then there's owner finance. So you can do a deal, for example, where the owner of the property says, you know what, I want to, and I'm busy, I just finalized the deal with one of my students like this, where the owner said, right, I'll put in the property, you do the renovations that's needed. And in this particular deal, my student had to fix the roof and fix all the cupboards in the place, do new tiling and a paint job, and just fix up a little bit of the exterior. It was face brick. So the total cost of all of that is 100,000 rand. And then basically what they said, right, so as the owner, you hold on to the property. Do not give me the property. I won't pay you for the property. I will do the renovations. And then when the property is sold, we will then share the profits. In that way, the owner finances the purchase price of the property, and the buyer only pays for the renovations. You could even there, like we did with this particular student, go and raise the capital with other partners to be able to then invest money into the development or the redevelopment. So he didn't even have to put in a cent of his own money. He's just doing the work. He did the deal, he structured the deal. We went to other funders to then get the 100,000 that he required, and he's now busy renovating the property, and when it's sold, they will share the profits. Then there's venture capital. Venture capital is a very difficult one in this game, especially if you're a small player. If you're a big player, then it's a different story, because basically venture capitalists want businesses that are already operational, already making profits, businesses that are ready for expansion, and that's the kind of money that venture capitalists will come in. Traditionally, they're very expensive, so look out, be careful if you're going to go for venture capital. But basically, it's funders that will help you to raise money in order to expand your business. That's basically what venture capitalists do. Private finance is basically private houses that have money, a family office, for example, that has money and they want to invest in different things. Very similar to venture capital, but on a much smaller scale, where they will say, right, okay, we're looking for property deals, and you then bring them deals and they invest into your business. Then there's angel investors, those people who are who believe in you as an individual, and they will say, okay, you know what, I know you don't have money, I'm going to be an angel and I'm going to invest into you and your business. Those are people that believe in you and will then put in money up front before you've even started. You've just got an idea, a concept, then you need an angel investor. Family investments, that's also obviously family homes, family houses, but you can also go to your own family where they can become partners in your business. Then there's rent to buy, where you can go in, you buy a property, but on a rent to buy basis, almost like an installment sale, where you buy a car and you pay it off over a period of time. It's exactly the same kind of thing, where there's a financier, there are financiers out there that will do rent to buy facilities, and you then pay them a rental on a monthly basis until the 5 years or 10 years or whatever the period of time is over, and then the property becomes yours. Then there's rent to rent. You can rent a property on the beachfront, for example, and you can then rent it out as an Airbnb to other people. You never take ownership of the property, but you can generate income from the property. You then use that money to be able to then finance other deals. Then there's also another thing I didn't put there, sourcing, where you can source property deals. You can sell the concept, you can package it, sell it to somebody else and make a sourcing fee. For that, however, you have to have a real estate license or a PPRE registered. You must be a PPRE registered licensee holder. You have to have a Fidelity Fund certificate in order to do sourcing. Anybody who's doing sourcing without an FFC is doing it illegally. So you have to actually be a property practitioner or real estate agent to do that. Okay, so those are 15 different types of fundings that you can use. But let's talk about alternative funding methodologies. There are things like stokvels, crowdfunding platforms, and real estate tokenization. With stokvels, it enables group ownership, it builds trust and financial discipline within a group, and it funds funds for community development, etc. Basically, the idea is where it's a group of people, just like any other kind of stokvel, that puts in money every single month towards the purchase of property for property investment and return. So that's property stokvels. Did you know that there's 800,000 stokvels in this country? Those are official stokvels. They say the numbers over the million when you talk unofficial as well. And then there is more than 11 million people that invest in stokvels every year. And those 11 million people put over 50 billion rand in bank accounts, stokvel bank accounts every year. So my encouragement to people is, you can take all that money out again, but keep the interest. If we imagine 50 billion rand sitting in bank accounts all across the country, the interest on that alone is about 5 billion rand. If we just take that 5 billion rand, we could create a massive portfolio. So that's a real opportunity there. Stokvels, you can put your own stokvel together in order to then raise money for your investment portfolio. Then there's crowdfunding. This is digital capital raising. It's based on equity-based, it's equity-based, and there are two, there's one equity-based where you receive dividends, and then there is debt-based or loan-based where you receive interest, where people invest in you either through equity or a loan, and they then receive from you either dividends or interest. Crowdfunding uses online platforms to raise funds from many, many individuals, and it is scalable and a transparent method for small scale developers and small scale investors. Then there's real estate tokenization. You've heard of cryptocurrency. This is a type of cryptocurrency, except the difference between normal crypto is that there's nothing that backs cryptocurrency. With real estate tokenization, however, you are tokenizing a real asset, a property. And people, when they buy your token, so we've got a token called Cobalt Blocks as an example. If you buy a Cobalt block, that's 10 Rand, and you then own 10 Rand or 45 million Rands worth of property. So utilizing tokenization to then spread the risk and fractionalize the ownership within that real estate portfolio. That's another way that you can raise capital, is through real estate tokenization. So we've lobbied government, corporates, and investors and developers to buy into this idea, and we are slowly seeing some progress where we have call to action corporates, government, investors and developers to invest into these new methodologies for fundraising. Basically, what we're talking about is fractionalization, whether you're talking about stokvels, crowdfunding, or tokenization. It's all fractionalization. And what fractionalization is basically you're not buying a building for yourself. You're buying a fraction or one brick of that building. You own one brick, and other people own other bricks of that building, all fractionalized in one title deed. So the title deed will be in a company or a cooperative or something, and you then own shares through either a stokvel, a crowdfunding model, or a real estate tokenization. And collectively, a group of people can then own property through fractionalization. Okay, that's it from me. We as an institution, as an organization, we have our own funding processes. And if you want to talk to me more about that, there are my contact details. If you want to just take a screenshot quickly before I close the sharing. 3, 2, 1, closed. There we go. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, Nigel, for the presentation you've just shared. I'm seeing our chat box also is full of questions, and we are exactly at 5:30 now, 30 minutes left for a session, and I would like to open for questions, starting with the hands, then I'll go to the chat box. So if you're not comfortable to speak, you can directly write your message on the chat box. I'll definitely read it, and let's engage with our fellow speakers and panelists. I would like to lead the way and start with a few questions to our few panelists, starting with Mr. Brian Sango. My good sir. Yeah. Okay, you're back. No, thank you very much. I think my question to you, okay, maybe just to give clarity, just write down the question, then you'd answer at the end once everyone also has got a chance to ask questions, so that at least we do one row of answering. Is that fine?
Sorry, come again.
I'm saying I'll just ask questions, and then I'll open the questions to the floor to our attendees to also pose their questions. You just write them down, and then I'll give you a chance to answer them at once.
Okay.
Happiness. Perfect. My question is, I think I've known your work, I've seen your work. Amazing indeed. How can we merge the two? When I say the two, I mean being a property practitioner and building wealth while you're a property practitioner. I see being a property practitioner is a profession. That's what you do for a living. But we are exposed to information that is very much wealthy. And by so saying, I mean that how can we bridge the two gap of being a property, because I know even most of our participants here, they are property practitioners. How can we bridge the two gap of being property practitioners and investing and building wealth in real estate, taking advantage of all the other tools that are there? One of the key challenges I know is that sometimes when you start diverting into too many portfolios, you lose focus on what you're doing. I'll give an example with myself. when I started my real estate journey, my first was in commercial, you know, and commercial because it was stock that was available. No one trusted me with their house. So I had office spaces that I would list and get a deal. But I found it easier when you solely choose a segment of or a sector that you focus on. Even when you do your daily job, your cold callings, if you're doing residential, doing residential. If you're doing sales, it's sales, you know. But how can we match the two? That's just my question. How can we match the two, property practitioners and building wealth simultaneously while we are practicing in real estate? And my question to Hazel would be that building your portfolio of student accommodation, how is the access to finance, you know, in that aspect, and from a private partner or government of some sort, if you've explored those options? And the reason I'm asking is because you might find that we have someone out here who's interested in doing student accommodation, but because of lack of resources, being financial resources, they can't really finance their own model. And probably they would want to explore what are other methods that they can look into. Getting the location right, I think that's the first thing that is the key. And also ticking all the boxes, like you have said, the rezoning, all those things. But how can one navigate through this student accommodation? Because I know that we are in a shortage of beds in our country for student accommodation. So there is demand for sure. But how can we tap into the space while the demand is still there? And also tapping into the space so that also people that can't even afford or they don't have the financial muscles, they can also participate. Because if it's only open for those that are well resourceful, it obviously leaves others outside the market. And my last question would be to our landlords, uMaStandi. You know, great job, guys, for identifying a market in our township and servicing that market. I think it's something that is very much commendable. In terms of your financing structures, and I think how do you link the real estate what's this model in your properties? For example, do you have in-house property practitioners that source out those properties for you, and then do they get a commission for it? Or how do you work around let's say you get a client who says, I want a house in Katlehong, for example. How do you work around making sure that they get a house in Katlehong? It's well located. I know you have a team in-house that does that, but there is an element of a property practitioner that you guys obviously need to tap into. How do you play it? And the reason why I'm asking that is because in part of our tendency, our property practitioners, they might not necessarily want to invest, but they might have properties that have potential for investment purposes. How do they reach out to you and say, here's property X? Based on the market analysis, like I've said, property practitioners have tools to identify that this property has potential for X, Y, and Z. How can they reach out to you and make sure that at least they utilize those options? I don't see any hand up. I would definitely go back I'll go to our chat box. The first question we got on our chat box is from Itumeleng. A question posed to Ms. Hazel Masingi. How did you acquire the budget to venture into property development of student accommodation? Was it through loan and businesses? The mistakes you've made, the investment worth, isn't that market challenging in terms of competition from the property developers, varying for accredited student accommodation? How do you stand out? So I think the question here is that, did you get finance to do your development? And how do you navigate around the competition from other developers and the accreditation of student accommodation? How do you stand out? The second question is from an anonymous. What is the limit amount for purchase and construction option? Okay, I think this is directed to Master. My dear colleagues on the chat box, I humbly ask that when you ask a question, please make sure that it's clear and you direct it to a panel so that they also get to answer the question very well. Okay, another question is with regards the areas that have township mafias, how do you work around it? Okay, so this I think also it also has to do with uMaStandi. Itumeleng again, a question posed to Ms. Zinhle. Is it possible to make the slides available for us to go through? There are some of the key points that I didn't get to write. I think Zinhle would answer that. And just to add a bit, on the 20th of June, this coming Friday, in fact, we're hosting a transformation dialogue in Sandton. uMaStandi will be there exhibiting. So if you are coming through to our event in Sandton, make sure you connect with them. They will be there to assist you with all their queries. Last question that I have on the chat box is from Itumeleng. A question posed to Mr. Nigel. How do you drive a bargain for a land that is not on sale to be on sale? Is it normal in the property world, because you may be looking at the area and its potential, and the land, not a property, is not on the market? That was directed to Mr. Nigel. I hope you got that, Mr. Nigel. If you didn't, it's available in our chat box. Dear colleagues, is there any question that I'm missing before I open floor to my, okay, I see another one from Brian Khumalo. Question for Ms. Zinhle Khumalo. What about, it's a Khumalo affair. Question for Ms. Zinhle Khumalo. What about the places that you guys are covering in your slides? Can you accommodate owners willing to finance outside those zones? This question is to uMaStandi again. And thank you very much, colleagues, to our panelists, to our attendees. Those are the questions we have for now. We are only left with 20 minutes for a session, but I think we can continue to engage. We don't want to cut this very much informative session. With the order, Mr. Brian Sango, you can start taking the questions, and then let's continue with the same order to answer those questions. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I think on my question, I'll also just rope in the expertise of my co-panelist, Nigel, because I think he'll have some valuable insights for our attendees. So basically, in summary, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's how to bridge any sort of expertise as a practitioner and have that tie into whatever you're doing as an investor. So the good thing that anyone who's already playing as a practitioner or exercising any agent capacity, be it rental or sales, is you get to speak to the property sellers and property buyers on a day-to-day basis. So you're in a very good strategic position to hear firsthand how some of these gurus have got from point A to point B, meaning you can nitpick at what they've done great and use that to your advantage and maybe emulate or pick up from that. Or you can also get to hear how they burnt their fingers. So you don't have to wait on making the wrong moves yourself as an investor. You get to learn from other industry veterans to see what it is that they did right and what they did wrong, and leverage off that to make better decisions. Then point number two that I would like to as much as bring up would be, look, in all honesty, trying to spread yourself too thin is disastrous, but also putting all your eggs in one basket is not also ideal. So I would emphasize the need for a team approach. Instead of trying to operate as an island, maybe get together with like-minded individuals, obviously have a sound memorandum of understanding between you guys as a team. It's always best to get someone maybe who's an expert in things that you're not an expert at. So someone in your team is focusing more on unlocking opportunities within the commercial space. Someone maybe is focused or is a fundi when it comes to student accommodation. Someone is a guru when it comes to Airbnb. And now, if you have all those members of your teams having key areas that they focus on, but to the benefit of the whole team, then you certainly are a step closer in building some form of wealth through your investment exercises. Then the third element, which we didn't get a chance to speak much on, but I think that was addressed in yesterday's session, is the role that prop tech and any AI tools can be used to help you build wealth. You've got a lot of AI platforms out there that can help you sieve through data much quicker, help you make more tangible and effective feasibility studies and risk assessments, help you predict market trends, etc., etc. And if we certainly can make use or add AI and prop tech as an addition to whatever systems and teams we have in place, then we definitely will be leaning more to opening up more wealth avenues within real estate. Mr. Nigel, I'll just bring you in here just in case. I think you might have one or two comments to add or anything I might have left out on.
Yeah, sure, Brian. You've covered most of it. I feel that your point on multiple income streams, I don't think you said it that way, but the point on multiple income streams, if you want to build something that's resilient, something that will help you through different good and bad times, having an income stream that comes from multiple sources is always good. So as a real estate agent, if you are in the space, or property practitioner as they are now called, then obviously you have first sight to whatever is available in the market. People will come to you and allow you to market their property. You could then decide whether you want to market the property to the normal man on the street, whether you want to package it as an investment opportunity to your network of investors, or if you want to actually keep the deal for yourself and try and negotiate and bring it into your own portfolio. So that's the unique position that you are in as a property practitioner, where you have access to the market before it goes out to On Property 24 or Private Property or any of these other online systems. And I agree also that you're using prop tech and other technologies like artificial intelligence. I mean, I'm using it literally every day now. It's about knowing what type of prompting you need to do, how to manage the artificial intelligence in order to then give you the best outcomes that you're looking for. So I would recommend, learning about prop tech and about artificial intelligence, going on courses that teach you on how to use the different types. There's so much out there right now. And I mean, you now have artificial intelligence programs that are designing other artificial intelligence programs. It's insane what's going on in the market right now. So learn what's going on, follow the market. I spend at least 2 hours a day watching videos and checking out things, what's going on out there in the market with regard to prop tech and artificial intelligence, as well as fintech. And I also do education, edtech. So yeah, keep an eye on the technologies that are out there. Keep a very, very firm eye on it. But in terms of creating wealth in the property sector, my biggest advice to anybody, one word: start. I've got too many people who analyze and overanalyze, deals. They've got like hundreds of deals going at the same time, but they never actually buy their first property. So for me, the ultimate thing is, if you want to start the property portfolio, just start. Go and do a deal. You'll fail or you'll succeed. That's all part of the learning process, is failing. When you fail, it's just another way for you to learn how not to do something. There's no such thing as failure, really. If the thing doesn't go right, it's only because you didn't do it right. Now you learn from that mistake, and then the next time you do it right again. So even if I've got students who have got properties and they have to pay 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 a month into the bond because they either don't have a tenant, or they have or the money they're getting for rental is lower than the bond. There are all sorts of reasons. So prepare yourself for all of that, so that you know that if you have a problem, and the worst problem is that you have a couple of months where you've got no rental, make sure that before you start, that you actually have the money to cover your bond and so on. But my most important advice: start.
No, thank you very much, gentlemen, for that. before we move to the next speaker to answer the question, I think I fully agree with what you're saying. You know, a lot of people are stuck in the planning phase. Too many information, it's overwhelming, and that's where even the doubts start happening. You know, because we are too scared to fail, and I believe that's the treasure in which we get to our ideal destination. Yes, we can learn through other people's mistakes, but I think our own mistakes at times teaches the biggest lesson. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for that. Hazel, I think you can go through, and then we will end with Zinhle Khumalo with the support. Thank you.
Okay, so the question was from Itumeleng. Okay, how did I acquire the budget to venture into property development? No, it was not through loans. I did not apply for funding. You know, it was funded by my mom. So yeah, and I'm really and I really appreciate her doing that for me, because you know, when you go into business, you need the capital. You know, when you don't have the capital, it's really difficult to start. So yeah, she believed in me and she funded the first project. I think another question was, besides the mistake that I made, no, it was definitely worth it, guys. You know, investing in property is always worth it. You know, whether it's commercial, whether it's student accommodation, no, it's all worth it. The market. Okay, I don't know how to answer this here. Maybe you can assist, ne? She asked if the market is challenging in terms of competition from other property developers. I have not experienced that as yet, because we are only working on our project. So it's not like we're going out there and, you know, applying for tenders or doing, no, I haven't reached that stage as yet. So I wouldn't know if it's challenging. You know, I'm still on baby steps, you know, baby steps still emerging. So nah. And
Okay,
I've
maybe
only actually
just
recently started now. Okay, sorry.
No, I just wanted to add a comment.
Okay.
Touching base on what uMaStandi has said. From a developer point of view and a property practitioner's perspective, the competition will always be there. But how you overcome competition, it's how you structure your development. uMaStandi said something very profound, that keep your development clean, and so that it's likeable. It's the same as what we encounter as property practitioners. You know, the properties that stay long in the market, mostly properties that are not well taken care of, even when they've got potential in terms of the location. But if you're able to take care of your property, just one example that I might also mention, Airbnbs. People book Airbnbs for aesthetic. You know, we might have properties that are developed the same, but aesthetically, what will stand out is what will make people book your place. So I think that's one of the most key things you can use. And zooming into the model that Hazel works on, which is student accommodation, you need to understand what excites students. You know, you can keep things simple, but make sure that they are comfortable in their space. This year I was accompanying my younger brother to the university at Val, and there is this private accommodation where it's packed. Everyone wants to go there. It's because of they have good their resources, they are reliable,
the facilities,
good, better services, and all. I can name on and on. So I think that's how you stand out as a developer, especially in the student accommodation space. Yes, we have demand in terms of the beds that are shortage, but to ensure that your portfolio runs effectively from day one to the last day. And I think the model of student accommodation also, it's a bit different. You know, the leases are not like your normal residential lease. There's a period where the students are not at home. They're at home. They're not at the rest. And those are the periods that most student accommodators use to revamp, to renovate, and get those accommodations ready. January, they take the list that starts from February to November, December again. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
And just to add on that, the management side of things, most of I'm not going to mention the institution, but most of on-campus student accommodation, they are not properly managed. So during the beginning of the year, students are desperate. They need the accommodation. So of course they're going to sign the contract. They're going to move into the accommodation. But, you know, a few months staying there first semester, they want to move, you know, and then when they move, they go to private student accommodations, which are well managed. And also just to add on what Siya said about, you know, aesthetics and all of that, when you build an accommodation that meet essential standards, that's amazing, that's perfect. But when you add things like, I know accommodations that have pools, you know, that's not a need for students, you know, but having it's an added advantage for you as the service provider, you know. Let me just add on, just touch a bit on accreditation, right? When they come for inspections, they look at the accommodation. Okay, it has all the essential, you know, it has facilities, the features, you know, but when you have more than that, it's an added advantage. It becomes an added advantage. Your rental amount can go high because of, you know, you have a pool, you have a TV room. You know, students don't need a TV room. You having one, it's an added advantage. So yeah, I think Itumeleng, I believe we answered your question. If not, we can always connect. Thank you, Siya. Oh, sorry, thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Zinhle, I think you can take the floor just to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you had asked about us partnering with real estate agents. So we don't have that in-house. So it sometimes depends on the relationship that the portfolio manager would make with the real estate agents that are active within our areas of finance. So also, whenever a person comes and says they're looking for a deal, we do tell them that they do need to look around, which in your property platform, such as your Property 24 or private property, to see what buildings would be available for them that they would be interested in. But it's not something that we actively have to go out and look for. So maybe let me say a person says they're looking for a building in Protea Glen. They need to do the work. So in most cases, the client is the one that leads the process because you're the one that's going to be taking care of the building yourself. So we just would guide. But in terms of having a relationship with estate agents, let's say there is one who then has a building that's for sale, they can always just contact the portfolio manager and say, okay, I have this building that's for sale. Maybe let's say it's a rental unit or it's a piece of land. And then we would then distribute it to potential clients that are interested in purchasing within that area. Then they are the ones that would then go and view those buildings, and then we would do a feasibility later if they are interested. Let me just look for the questions. Okay, so I don't know where to start. Okay, what's the limit amount? 15 million. But also with me saying that the maximum is 15 million, this amount can also be guided by the amount of equity that you can put in. So if you have around 20 to 30% of that 15 million, you have the deal. So your equity is what would guide the deal. We'll see, this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. This is profitable or this is not. With regards to township mafias, we do state that, with clients, they would have to work with, the South African Police Service when it comes to such things, because it is a crime. It is not something that we would, let's say, lead, so it would be the client working with the police force in order to try and get around that challenge. But also, one of the things that I have noticed is that a lot of people ask about township mafias, but no one actually knows someone that has experienced that. So we do get a lot of these questions, even around the Durban area as well, where we did hear that this was rife, where people are like, I'm scared to invest because of the township mafias. But if you're asking them, which person do you know that has actually experienced this? They don't really know. I do know that it is something that happens, but it shouldn't be something that should scare you away from investing, especially because there is an amount of support from you know, our police force that can actually help you with that challenge. Because if you're going to stay scared of something that you're only hearing about or don't know anyone who has experienced it and how they got over it, then you might not start to invest. In terms of making the slides available, I can share them with you guys. But as Siyabonga stated, if you guys are unclear about the information that we had provided, since there is an event on Friday, please make the opportunity. My colleagues will be there. They will also just explain the process in more detail. Even if you have potential deals, excuse me, please discuss them with them, and then they'll be able to advise you further on how you can be able to proceed forward. Then I don't really understand the question from Brian Khumalo, because if you're saying you want to finance out of these zones, what type of areas are you looking at? I don't know if he can actually clarify that question for me so that I can be able to answer it.
Okay, Brian, are you still there? Are you still there? You can maybe unmute yourself and just clarify your question. But from what I've understood, I think maybe Brian saw the venue, the location that you guys cover, and I think he limited that to those locations. And I think understanding the two models that you guys have broken down, uMaStandi and tough, uMaStandi, which is the township economy based, you know, any township, and if you do your feasibility studies, can this give you return on investment based on your studies and all those things? Because sometimes there are townships that they don't have really good return on investment, primarily based on the economic activities happening in it. But let me not deprive Brian the opportunity to actually clarify his question. But I think from what I've understood, that's what I got. Brian, you can maybe answer ask the question once more so that we can wrap up.
Sir, because you've nailed it straight on the head, Bella Mobile. They've only listed 10 townships, and what about the rest, like Ombali and so on? Do they also finance those? But thank you, Chair.
We take it on a case-by-case basis. In my respect, we do consider it. But sometimes one of the factors that can affect your project actually happening would be the rental income that's generated in the area. So an example would be, we have received a lot of inquiries from people that live in Bali, only to find that when you're doing the feasibility for bachelor units where you have your kitchenette and your bathroom facilities, you would find that maybe they're renting out 1.5. The construction cost is the same as what you would build here in Durban, where we're able to charge 3.8. So that ends up working at a disadvantage to you, because the equity that would be required for the deal becomes very high, because we finance based on your future cash flows as well. So if your future cash flows are not very high, it means that you need to pay a higher amount and then refinance a lower amount, which sometimes doesn't make business sense. But if you do have a project that you'd like for us to discuss, you can contact me, and then we can see how we can work around that. But we do look at Imarisbek, especially Edendale, because of, you know, the amenities that are there. You have EDUT, you have the TVET college, you have the hospital there. It's quite close to town. There's your hula means around there as well. So it's a very good area to invest in. The problem becomes the rentals that are generated in the area. I hope that answers your question.
But thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Do we have any other question? Maybe with the last 2 minutes we have, let's maybe touch base on the last question, and we can just wrap it up. Do we have any last question perhaps, or we all good? Happiness?
Yeah, I think there was one more question that was right at the bottom for me.
Okay, no, you can take that.
To negotiating deals where the property actually isn't on sale or on the market. So just very quickly, if I can answer that one. I would normally never recommend anybody to go and try and do a deal where the property isn't actually for sale, because normally then if you go to the seller or the owner, they would want full price and they would not negotiate with you because basically the property isn't for sale. We currently have a property that everybody's looking at, but we're not wanting to sell. So I want full price for the property because I never put the thing on the market. So I would recommend you rather look at properties that are on the market but have been on the market for a long time. Because properties that are on the market for a long time means that there have been people to come and look but nobody buying. And those kinds of deals you can normally negotiate for. That's probably the easiest way to answer that one. Thanks, Sia.
Okay, I think I have one last question in the last 5 minutes. They say, how do you find off-market property from motivated sellers? From Utembinkosi. Okay, the question was not directed. We can't see the directive of the question. I think we have reached the conclusion of our today's session, hosted by the Academy of Real Estate and Construction in partnership with SAIBPP and SAYIPA. I would like to take this opportunity, my dear colleagues, and thank the panelists for making time to share this sort of knowledge with our fellow attendees, property practitioners, and aspiring property practitioners. I think I'm happy to be moderating such a session where it gives and it educates, it gives back to a lot of property practitioners in our space. You know, we need this information, we need to sharpen each other. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, my dear colleagues, speakers, for attending this session. And also our attendees. You know, without you participants, this event wouldn't be possible, wouldn't make sense. You know, we'll be only presenting to ourselves. So thank you guys for staying with us for so long. In closing, I would like to also invite you tomorrow to our day 3 of our event. Same time, same place. And let's keep the ball rolling. You know, I think it's Youth Month. We are the future. We are the people that we've been waiting for. My dear colleague spoke so firmly about transformation, about so much historical challenges we encountered, you know, as a country. But I firmly believe that as young people, we are looking into technology and everything that is there. My dear colleagues, also, I would also like to extend the invitation to our transformation dialogue that will be held on the 20th of June in Sandton. Part of the dialogue, in actual fact, is to ensure that young people are kept into this real estate sector, and we are part of the conversation. You know, I firmly believe there's nothing about us without us, and I would like to wrap it up and say thank you, my dear colleagues. Let's meet again tomorrow, and have a lovely evening. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, bye.